Hey Globe Gang, it's Maisha back in the Globe's Beauty Closet where we gloss, we floss, and we boss. And I have a boss with us today that I'm so excited about. Last year was tough to say the least, and it did prompt a lot of response from a lot of retailers, a lot of companies, a lot of celebrities, who made a lot of promises and issued a lot of platitudes. Aurora James of Brother Vellies decided to do something more substantive. She issued a call to action to major retailers in which she challenged them to devote 15% of their shelf space to Black-owned brands. And they rose to the challenge. Not all of them, but some of them, and more every day. And I was so excited that she would agree to come and talk to us today about the 15% pledge and about what she's doing next. Because when it comes to saving Black lives, it's not just how we're living in the streets, it's how we're surviving, how we're thriving, how we're able to build our own infrastructures. And she's deeply invested in that. So let's get into it. Welcome to Big Beauty Tuesday.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I mean, I could not be happier, A, because I'm a huge Brother Vellies fan, like huge, but also because you have done something this past year that I think is tremendous. You launched the 15% pledge in June when everybody else was posting black boxes. You were like, so how about this? Let's put some black boxes on some shelves. And I've been watching all year as you've done this. So let's get the 15% pledge and just how that came about, just to recap for people.
In the wake of all of these, incredibly senseless murders of Black people across this country, I really wanted to take accountability to another level. And I really wanted to address some of the economic inequalities that were happening, because as much as we want to make donations and all of that stuff, ultimately, if we don't get more money into Black communities, if we don't start supporting Black businesses, we're not going to see much changing. And so I launched a call to action on my Instagram asking major retailers across the US to commit 15% of their shelf space to Black-owned businesses. It quickly took off. Within 10 days, Sephora became the first major retailer to commit to the 15% pledge. And since then, we've had everyone from Macy's, Bloomingdale's, West Elm, MedMen. It's been really incredible.
It's also given us something to help call other retailers to action on. I think it's so important. And, for people who don't get the 15% thing, that it is approximate to, I think we make up like 13.8% of the United States population. So you're really just asking for the same
Exactly.
right we have in the United States. And it's not a lot to give, considering what we have given to the infrastructure of this country.
Really, and how much money Black people spend every day in America, right? So that's also what you have to think about.
Yeah.
It's like we are keeping these businesses afloat, and they need to also keep our community afloat by investing in our companies. And ultimately, when we keep buying the same major brands that people know and love, it's fine, but it's not really going to help things get better in this country. And now more than ever, we really need to see that investment happen. Some people are like 15%, like that's not a lot, but most of these retailers are at like 1%, 2%, 3% right now of Black-owned businesses. So it represents a huge jump, and we've created a pipeline worth $4 billion so far.
That alone is incredible. And yes, when we talk about how many Black dollars go into these businesses, like I do have to shout out Sephora, A, for being the first to sign on, but also doing things like, making their accelerator program totally BIPOC brands, right? Like that's what they did this year. Like, this is what we're doing. Because as we know, there's the external, there's the structural, right? And you're also doing something on that front that I'm really excited about. Like, got this really scary statistic. We've obviously seen tremendous job losses of the pandemic, and it came out that something like 140,000 women were out of work, and most of them were women of color. And of course, of those, most of them were Black women. As a working Black woman who feels grateful every day to still be employed, that was a statistic that was staggering to me.
Yeah.
Like, when you also think of the fact that so many women are heads of household, so many Black women are, supporting their families and, working mothers, et cetera, et cetera. What did that, I guess, motivate you to do? Since I know that you have always been about again, putting money in people's pockets.
That was so crazy, that statistic. 140,000 job losses, 106,000 of them Black women.
Like how, but we know how, but
It's crazy. Yeah. So what we did is we launched a job board at the 15% pledge. And I always hear this. I always hear people say, well, we want to hire Black people, but Black people aren't applying to work for us. Like, that's what they always say. And I'm like, well, how are you trying to reach Black people? How have you created a company that even makes Black people feel like they're going to be comfortable or seen when they're there? Like, do you have relationships with HBCUs? All of that. So we launched a job board, and it's for companies that we believe are going to actually be great employers of Black women, people of color in general. So it's going to be a really great place for Black people to go and look for career opportunities, and for companies to post there on 15percentpledge.org. So I'm excited about it. And truly, it's like the least that anybody could do.
I took a glance just off the top, because I'm researching, because that's what I do. But off the cuff, and the glance that I was seeing there, I was like, oh, these were like jobs, like good jobs. Like, when we talk, we're also then dovetails with this other issue that we've been seeing for years in terms of those of us who are Black and work in creative fields, those of us who are Black and work in fashion, and how marginalized we often feel in those spaces. I mean, I'm lucky to do that at the root, where we're all Black, but at the same time, if you're not, which most of the time is not the case in fashion, finding those roles, finding places where you're going to be not just welcome, but allowed to bring your whole self to work, that's a real challenge.
I think too, that people don't understand some of the barriers to entry, and fashion is such a specific industry, but most people break into fashion by interning. And in order to intern in New York for free, like, you pretty much have to be rich.
It's true. I mean, I feel like I started out as a makeup assistant with, celebrity makeup artist, and I just happened to transition into modeling, which is its own thing. But like, that is how people do it. And they also do it, the old fashioned way, which is through people, but we don't have the same kind of networks always, especially not in these major money-making industries that other people have. Which is why it's also exciting for me. I know you have been really, I look at you and like Jean Raymond and all these people, and a lot of you, Sandra Charles and Lindsay Peoples-Wagner, all of you have started various initiatives. Tell me a little bit about that part, because I think, Lindsay did something remarkable a few years back, right before she went to Teen Vogue, where she did this article where she interviewed so many of you about what it was like to be Black in fashion. I think we're still seeing the results of that, but what's really exciting to me is the collaborative efforts that I'm seeing taking place here. Like, how's that manifesting for you?
Nothing can happen in a silo, right? And I think, for me, it's so important to really talk to my friends and talk to my peers and figure out what we need. Because it's interesting, because when I launched the 15% pledge, everyone was like, why are you talking about economics right now? We need to talk about getting guns off the streets, right? And everyone has a different ask. And Black people are not a monolith, right? So for me, I love to talk to my friends about this sort of thing. I'm obviously very active in a lot of different areas. So my friends, people that gravitate towards me tend to be the same. Kirby and I have known each other for years and years. We met when we both started our companies. Both are very aware that our success is built on a lot of hard work, but it's also something that hasn't been accessible for everybody else, and as such, when you have a microphone and you have a certain amount of opportunity, what are you going to do with that?
I appreciate you coming to our platform and sharing your message as well. Again, we love to do our part to amplify what you all are doing too. And also, again, I love that you pointed out, you're also still running a company. And this is a company that was also founded very much in that same ethos, in terms of, you're not just selling us a luxury shoe, which, by the way, love that, because not everybody can afford luxury goods, but those who can, it's amazing to be able to buy Black. I can't thank you enough for what you're doing, how you're talking about it, being so vocal, and for sharing it with us. Thank you so much.
Well, my pleasure, of course, absolutely. Thank you for, acknowledging the work.